My friends, the people's houses established by Ataturk himself, which were introduced as the cradle of enlightenment by the Kemalists, were in short institutions built to replace mosques. Indeed, even the towers of the people's houses that were built, look at Mehmet Akif Ersoy's closest friend Eşref Edip, who says that mosques will be removed from being mosques and will be made similar to people's houses, and people's houses will replace mosques. In other words, mosques will be people's houses, and people's houses will be idolatrous. The religious affairs organization will be abolished. The methods and times of worship will be changed, and the original text of the Quran will be eliminated and banned. With the excuse of making the people's houses a library, the religious books, valuable manuscripts of the Quran, and the tafsir books collected from the Muslim people were destroyed one by one. Not even one of these works remained in the square. Muslims were protecting the Quran, its commentaries, religious works, and all the treatises that mentioned the religion of Islam from falling into the hands of the gendarmes and the police. They had hidden it in barns, woodsheds, or haylofts. They wanted to completely eliminate religion. They suppressed religion, secularism. Religion will not interfere with the state. The state will not interfere with religion, right? They wanted to replace the people's house instead of a mosque. I would like to show a few things from their own laws and sources regarding the people's house instead of a mosque. My friends, in 1936, the Ülkü magazine, which was directly affiliated with the CHP General Secretariat, described the people's houses as follows: neither a mosque nor a madrasa, nor any other youth institution. In our opinion, people's houses are places of worship that today's generation will enter. The youth does not worship an idol or an imaginary being in these houses. What the youth finds in these houses as a god is themselves. For example, Zeynep Özkan, who wrote the book on religious life during the İnönü period, says the following: in the people's houses, no activity that would remind religious feelings and teach new objects in this field was ever allowed. Just like in the village institutes, in the people's houses, with their clothing, speech, consciousness, taste, and perception of the world. And the biggest obstacle to the new human model that was wanted to be created with the understanding of life was thought to be the Islamic tradition. Look what he says: the community centers are the only houses that today's generation will enter, the only places of closing. The closing places are the same. They do not worship an idol or an imaginary being. The youth finds themselves as a god in these houses. In this sense, they are the symbols of the new nation-state, as well as the symbols of the new secular identity, as places of non-religious gathering. My friends, in 1935, after the Masonic lodges put themselves to sleep, they donated their goods to the community centers. All the Masons registered in the community centers. During the Ataturk period, the Masonic lodges were apparently closed. However, all the Masons had gathered in the community centers. In fact, tea feasts were even given in the community centers, in honor of the Masons registering in the community centers collectively. Now listen to me carefully. With the law numbered 2845 enacted in 1935, it became officially legal to use the mosques that would be excluded from the classification for purposes other than worship. Thus, our mosques are being rented, sold, closed. Party building, community center, barn, warehouse, military. It was used for barracks and other purposes. Look, in this document dated 1937 that you saw on the screen, it was written that the Yıldırım Mosque in Edremit was sold to the CHP to be built as a community center. The Valide Sultan Mosque, which was recently reopened for worship, was used as a community center, just like other mosques during the single-party period. In this document that you see on the screen, the Republican People's Party's Konya deputy had requested that 1,000 bottles of champagne and 4 cases of whiskey be provided by the president for a ball to be given at the community centers for the 10th anniversary of the Republic. Later, when this amount was not enough, he ordered 300 more bottles of champagne. In the community centers, which had become like the meeting places of the Masons, entertainments with drinks and alcohol were held. Considering the fact that our mosques had been converted into community centers, you can better understand how disgusting and horrific the attacks on our mosques were during the single-party period. In addition, it was a period when the people's money was allocated for entertainment and drinks. In order not to die of hunger, the people of Anatolia would eat animals. It is also necessary not to forget that he took the bait. Sheriff Aykut, Edirne Sahilavu, that is, the deputy of the People's Party, the explanation of the CHP program, the explanation of Kemalism. There are such things here that people do not hate, do not get angry, do not whine like some who talk here. If the table were not glass, I would break it out of anger. Is it a human conscience to say this without getting carried away by anger? My friends, Ataturk called Selim Sura Tarkan, who wrote articles on reform in religion, referring to Islam, and said to me, "Look, this religion will collapse, and a new religion will emerge in the future." He said, "You will not write about these issues, do you understand?" Indeed, the Kemalist regime had almost started searching for a new religion. In schools it was taught that the religion of Islam was not real, and that the Quran was the Prophet's own words. For example, in the history books that were forced to be read by 13 and 14-year-old children in high schools upon Ataturk's order, it was taught that the Quran was not the words of Allah, but that the Prophet himself wrote it after years of thinking to reform the Arabs. In fact, in the book Kemalism written by Edirne MP Seref Aykut in 1936, it was said that Kemalism was a religion, and that young people should believe in this religion. Moreover, while Mustafa Kemal was alive, poems were written to him saying, "You are God." People who wrote poems about Ataturk being a god suddenly started to work in high positions in the state. The speech was printed as if it were the Quran, covered in the same way you see on the screen. In short, it was a single Kemalism is served as a religion during the party era. Mosques are replaced by public houses. The speech is shown as a holy book, as if it were the Quran. Mustafa Kemal was served as a holy temple from time to time with poems like, "If either a prophet or a god is a mausoleum, let the Kaaba be Arab. Chankaya is enough for us. Those who say that we would not exist if it were not for you are anti-religion." They are those who try to replace religion with Kemalism. Indeed, if it were not for Mustafa Kemal, this group would not exist. If it were not for Mustafa Kemal, people who stand in front of these statues just like Christians stand in front of the statue of Jesus in church would not have emerged from this nation. All the anti-religious attitudes are his work. My friends, don't forget to like and share my videos that I have prepared as a result of serious efforts, taking great risks, so that more people can reach them and my channel can develop greatly. If you want to support my channel financially, you can use the join and thank buttons. See you in the next video. Greetings, friends.